A lot going on.
Hey everyone, welcome to Actifio On-Tech. Today is Thursday, June 20th. Due to some complexities of schedule and other things, we're running a few minutes late today, but we're super excited. I'm Jay as usual, and next to me is
Giovanni.
Gio. Unfortunately, Jason is not here today as he had to go, congratulations, to his daughter's preschool graduation.
That's right.
Exciting times. So sadly, he's not with us, but we will battle on. Now, today we have a personal favorite of mine, which is a milk stout. In this case, it's Mast Landing Gunner's Daughter Milk Stout.
So it's funny, Jay, because when we kind of started working together here at Actifio, you really weren't into craft beer. You're like kind of like the normal like lagers, right?
That's true.
And then we started sharing beers and whatnot, and you just went directly to I am a stout guy. So
it is true. And I didn't pour it very well, but that's okay.
It's okay.
So I am known, my favorite is one that's only available from Trillium in the kind of the holiday time frame called Pom Pom. Still have a few of those at home.
We've had those.
We have, and I even had one thanks to Jason, Pom Pom Pom.
Yeah, the
Triple Pom.
Imperial version, yeah.
Which was good. I really like that.
This is so this is a milk stout that's like a chocolatey, peanut buttery type of a stout, very decadent. Mast Landing did a great job with this because it's super flavorful. I think we've had the Imperial version.
It is good.
Yeah, we've had the Imperial version here, which is a lot stronger. But the point I wanted to make about this is it's really flavorful, but also light. I think clocking in at like 5.3%. So, it's enjoyable without, doesn't pack too heavy of a punch.
Right? It's really, I would highly recommend it. Quite good. It's a little thinner than my usual favorite Pom Pom, but it has really good flavor. Now, before we get started, I do want to make a quick call, a shout out here. A shout out to the U.S. Women's National Team in soccer, who's playing in the World Cup right now, and in fact is playing literally right now. So U.S. versus Sweden just started the second half. U.S. currently is up 1-0. Let's hope that continues. But they're looking great. Fingers crossed for them. Let's keep it going.
They're playing Sweden?
They're playing Sweden.
Go USA.
I know, exactly. So with that, let's jump to a few stories that I have.
Rock and roll.
So the first one is interesting. Have you ever...
Hold on, I was watching the game.
Oh, sorry.
Just kidding.
Have you ever had attack by ransomware? Have you ever had to worry about that? I hope you haven't, because it's not good.
I personally haven't, but when the big ransomware attacks happened, was it last year? I believe, like early last year. We actually had a version of it sitting on a USB drive.
Right.
And all you needed to do is put that USB drive into a laptop, and you can infect like an entire network.
Well, I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you didn't. Well, there's a city called Riviera Beach, Florida, that a police officer, a police department employee opened one of those things and infected effectively the entire city's network.
Didn't they just do that in Baltimore?
It locked files, it shut down all the city services, and all operations have been down ever since. This is May 29th. So it's almost 2 weeks.
Wow.
So
how much were they asking for, does it say?
So they're asking for $600,000. The classic question is, what do you do?
Do you pay it?
And you know what? They paid it. Because they felt like they had no choice. What I would say in general is it does call into consideration the backup and recovery strategy.
Yep.
Because if you have a good backup and recovery strategy in place, the simplest way to recover is say, forget it, ransomware people.
Yeah, we got copies.
I'm not paying, I'm just going to recover. And you can do that. Sadly, Riviera Beach didn't seem to do that. I think it's a lesson for all of us. And even if you are someone at home, like a home user, you could be attacked by this too. Now, it's probably not worth $600,000 for you and your data, but let's not forget how important it is and having the right technology backup recovery in place. So let me ask you a question.
Yep.
Personal, not too personal. Do you back up your data? How do you do that?
Yeah, I do. I just back it up to a drive, right? So
if there's a fire in your house, you lose all your data.
Unless I grab the drive.
Right.
Yeah, I don't go to the cloud. I guess I should.
So there's this concept of 3-2-1.
Okay.
3 copies of data on 2 different types of media with 1 offsite.
3 copies of data, so that means 1 primary and 2 offsite and 2 secondary. Yeah, 2 backup. Okay, interesting.
So I don't know if you abide by that. It sounds like you do not.
I don't have the time to abide by that.
Well, I'm anal in that respect. I really work in this industry, so I do. I have a copy that's my production copy. I have a copy at home that's on a separate storage device that I use to recover.
Yep.
And then every night I also copy to a cloud provider to have 1 offsite. So, you know, I freely admit I'm more anal than most, but it is something that I think is really important to be thinking about, because if not just ransomware, like hard drives will die. Like that's the reality. Eventually they will die.
That's
so
true.
you need to make sure that you've got protection. So people, remember that.
I kind of interrupted earlier, but Baltimore, like the city of Baltimore, the government there also had a ransomware attack, and I don't think that they've recovered yet, or I don't even know if they paid. So they were down for a while as well.
Interesting. Goal!
USA?
USA. 2-0 now.
How many?
I missed the live picture of it as I was so engrossed with your comment.
Right.
But go US. 2-0.
Awesome.
So here's a question. I think you are you a Slack user?
Yep. Yeah, they just IPO'd today.
They IPO'd today.
Yep.
And one of the most noteworthy things, in my view, about that is not only they do an IPO or go public, but it wasn't an IPO in the classic sense. So the way an IPO normally works, and I digress for a moment, I happened to work in finance for a number of years before joining technology, so I have some experience. You normally hire these bankers, think of big New York firms, who take you around, introduce you to all the fund managers, and they manage it, and they also provide support for you that if the price isn't very good, they'll buy it or they'll promote it. That's how IPOs work, generally. But what Slack did was different. Slack said, we're going public, but we're not doing an IPO. So an IPO is an initial public offering, and what they are pursuing is something called, or not pursuing, pursued something called a direct public offering. So instead of having this whole road show and these supports, they just said, forget it. We are just selling our shares to anyone who wants to buy it. So
via what medium?
Well, they still hired sort of investment bankers to not to do the road show, but to handle that process.
Yep.
But it's just a very different approach that you don't normally see. And what it also means is that the opening price they originally said is going to be $26.
Yeah.
But it actually opened at $38. And the reason why is because it is a matter of buying versus selling. Like when the market opens, there's some people want to buy it, some people want to sell it, and based off of that, they set a price.
Sure.
So in fact, it never traded at 26.
Right.
It opened at effectively 38. So people who sold it can be really happy because they were sold it at $38, and now it's up to, last I saw was 41. $39.80 right now.
$38.
Oh, $38.70.
Yeah,
down a little bit. But it's just interesting. But they're not, some of the stories talked about how really cool technologies, no doubt, but they're losing money, maybe they're not growing that fast. Like there's some questions about that. But obviously, maybe the stories I had were angled in the wrong direction, but clearly the market is very enthusiastic about it.
Absolutely.
So I think that's great. Good for Slack. Congratulations. I'm not a big Slack user, you are.
They have a ton of users. Did I see valuation like in the billions, like 20 billion-ish? Good for them.
Market cap is $20.37 billion.
Good for them.
I know. It's really great.
Yeah,
so I like to see that. And I think it's just interesting how they did it themselves. And they're like, forget the traditional model. We're going this way.
It's like it's the way that a lot of industries are going now. It's just like screw the traditional
I know,
model.
it's true. Well, and you figure it could go either way, right? It could go either really well or it could go really poorly.
Yeah.
So it went really well for them. So good for them.
Absolutely.
So let's see. Another story I find of interesting. Do you ever get that thing? I'm sure everyone does because I get it periodically, where that like random person calls you on your phone and it's someone potentially even speaking a foreign language that's basically just a spam phone call.
Yeah, like 6 times a day.
Totally.
Does that include robocalls?
It is robocalls, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, now the new problem is, which is a pretty scary thing, is that some people or some environments are using robocalls and sort of saturating phone lines. So Tufts Medical Center, a very famous and very high-quality hospital here in Boston, on April 30th, received 4,500 robocalls between 9:30 and 11:30 that day. And it was someone speaking in Mandarin threatening deportation unless the person gave their personal information. Now, Tufts, for those who don't know, is located kind of in Chinatown. So maybe whoever was doing this was somehow thinking that they're going to hit a legitimate person who will give them their information, which is crazy. And so literally, it caused a huge problem.
Of course.
They couldn't call out because it kept getting these incoming calls. And worst of all, somehow, their telephone carrier couldn't block them.
It's like a form of terrorism.
It's like a form of. There's this classic thing in IT called a denial of service attack, where you basically send thousands of bogus users to a site to bring it down.
Right.
It's kind of like a phone-based denial of service attack.
Yeah.
You know what? You could see that, and you could see other people trying to do the same thing. It's quite unfortunate, really, and with a hospital and how important it is to take care of patients.
I mean, you could use that for corporate espionage if you wanted to. Like one business,
you could.
Like hires a business that does this to call another business, and denial of service to be able to do outgoing calls.
No, man, you could. Not a good thing, but you certainly could.
Don't take my idea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that's bad.
Right.
So that's not making the world a better place.
No,
I will tell you that.
Nope.
So let's see.
Oh my gosh.
All right, here's one for you. So when you think of Iceland, what do you think? What comes to mind?
Volcanoes.
Yeah.
Aurora Borealis.
Beautiful.
Waterfalls.
Yes.
Cold weather.
Yes.
Other things.
Have you ever been there?
Not yet. It's on my bucket list.
I would like to go there too.
It's
Although
only like a 3-hour flight from here.
I know, and I hate to sort of call out, but I've flown Iceland Air a few times to Europe. It's pretty reasonable. Reasonably priced, and it just seems to work.
I also think of the aftermath of the recession in 2008, and they arrested all the bankers in the country. Did you know that? Yeah, yeah, because they caused they essentially caused it. So that instead of bailing them out, they arrested them all, which I thought was pretty
whatever it takes,
heroic.
Whatever it takes. Oh, it's a good shot by Sweden, but a nice save by the U.S. goalie.
Multitasking.
I know, I sure am. So there's another word that you might want to think about associating with Iceland, and that would be data centers.
Iceland?
Yes.
Well, yeah, why? Because they can keep them cool without having to power like AC or.
Exactly.
Right?
In fact, their term is it is the coolest location for data centers. So,
well, isn't that where is it Greenland or Iceland? Probably Greenland actually. Doesn't Facebook have like an underground?
I think so.
Disaster recovery data center in Iceland or
yes,
something,
I think
or Greenland or something.
Yeah, Greenland can. Oh no, sorry, Greenland connects something else. But yes, they do. So, in fact, there's 3 big carriers there, and so to your point, I think the high it ever gets is like 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Which I can see what they think they might have the Celsius here as well for those of you who are Celsius people. But net, it never gets very warm. So literally it's the virtual equivalent of like, don't cool your data center, just open the windows.
Right.
So.
I mean, could that stuff ever freeze?
I don't know, because it's generating so much heat.
Yeah. It doesn't get.
The average annual temperature in the capital, Reykjavik, is 41 degrees Fahrenheit or 5 degrees Celsius. That's pretty darn cold. Yeah, that's barely above freezing.
Right.
So clearly, that's a huge thing. Now, so what's interesting is these companies have decided, to your point, we're just going to build these data centers and save money because we don't need cooling. The other thing you might not know is that, in fact, a lot of the electricity generated there is done through renewable resources.
Okay.
Things like hydro, stuff like that.
Hydroelectric?
Yes.
I mean, I'm assuming it'd be a great place to try and do thermo generated heat.
Like thermal heating and things?
I'm thinking hydro. Like where you dig down and get the heat from the earth.
Right.
But it's also, with this being said, because they have a tiny population.
Right,
as a country.
they do.
It's like 330,000. 330,000 people in that country. So I'm wondering, like, if they start selling this, you still have to have employees on site to like manage things, right? IT employees. So could this actually drive the population numbers higher up there. Like, you have, what's the average number of employees that you need to manage a data center?
Right.
You look
and it's constantly growing.
Right.
If as data is growing. Right.
Maybe.
So there's 3 big providers there. And, what they're finding is, I wish I'd show this, I can't. The requirement or power usage, and I'm ballparking it, by data centers has grown by roughly 8x in the last 5 years. So that gives an example of how much power is being used by these data centers. Now, the issue they're facing is a few. One issue is you still need power, right? 8x increase in power is significant, and while it's less power than maybe you'd need if you needed cooling, that's still a meaningful amount.
Yeah,
so there's still a concern about that.
Yeah.
The other one I think is interesting is that they talk about how there's like 3 main connections to the internet that come into Iceland. So the amount of bandwidth they have is fine, but not as big as you might like, right? So there's a concern that what happens if something like that, because if you're doing all of this crunching and things, you might not be very happy if you all of a sudden lose connectivity to your data center.
I mean, maybe it's not necessarily a main data center then. Maybe they're promoting it as a disaster recovery site, or could. Or utilize it as a failover site just in case, but and only maybe for main apps or something like that.
Well, the thing it turns out is a lot of these things, what they're doing, these 3 main data center companies, and it's unfortunate, I think. It's not a great use, but a lot of them basically spend a lot of time doing Bitcoin mining. So they license resources for people who want to mine Bitcoin. Yeah. I guess that's a good, I don't know, who knows?
Maybe they just got to do something to pay the bills to start, but
who knows? So I just think interesting, because I wouldn't have thought of Iceland, just your point, Gio, very, very small place with not a lot of people, and yet here it is. But it does make sense with the cool temperatures of wanting to do that. So let's see.
They score again?
No, it's still 2-0.
60 minutes in the game?
Yes. Let's see, I did that one. Robo Calls. I may have covered what I had. Really. Any topics jump out at you this week?
No, I mean, just to give our user conference a shout out. So we did Actifio Data Driven this week on Tuesday and Wednesday. Went great. We had some awesome speakers. I'm not going to get into all the speakers right now, but just some really, really great energy, great information, great feedback, and really, happy with the way that it went. It's really,
and we had a live stream on Monday from there. I have to say, I looked rather dorky. I'm sorry to say. I did, wearing the gear, but I felt that it was appropriate for me to do such a thing.
Yeah.
Maybe we should put in the comments the live stream so people can see it, so you can see really how absolutely dorky I looked. But that's okay.
He did look dorky, but that's okay.
Totally. But I was on brand. Hardcore.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was just good to, meet up with our customers again, and even people that aren't customers, they're just interested in data and usage of data and the way that the industry is going. I'm psyched it went smoothly, and thanks to everyone for attending, and looking forward to next year.
Totally. I think it's going to be in Boston again. I will put a link in those who are looking at the comments about this video. Pardon the dorkiness, but I think it was a great show, really fun. Great turnout from a lot of different people, and we enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. In Boston, it's a great place to host it. I mean, the weather was decent. It rained a little bit, but overall, during breaks, you could easily go outside and enjoy the weather. So it turned out to be really, really nice out. We thought it was going to pour the whole time.
Yes.
And it didn't, especially Monday night. Monday was
beautiful.
Gorgeous.
I know.
Cool.
I would add, by the way, just to go back to the beer of choice, this is an excellent choice. And the reason why I say that is it has the nice sort of richness and depth of a stout, but it doesn't have that really heaviness that some of them have. It's a much lighter one. I actually really like that. I think you can consume it on a more regular basis.
I'll give it up to Mast Landing, because quite frankly, this is not a brand new can either, right? This was canned in February, right? End of February, so beginning of March. And beer is best consumed immediately.
Yeah, but doesn't stout, isn't it one of the kind of beers
sit a little bit longer?
Yeah, like it can age a little better.
It can. It does depend on what it's made with, right? I don't believe that this, I say, chocolate and peanut butter, right? This has notes of chocolate and peanut butter, but if I'm not mistaken, there's no peanut butter or chocolate added. And there's like hints of coffee as well, right? But it's not like they added it to make it.
Yep.
Which, that's where the beer kind of degrades over time, is once you have these natural additives put into it, you lose that over time. This doesn't, what I've heard is with, when you taste this beer, you at canning versus like a couple months after, it doesn't really lose a lot of its flavor or integrity. So, hats off to these guys, man. Everyone loves.
You want a sample?
No, I'm good. I've had it before. But they're out of Maine. Maine's been putting out some really good beers over the past couple of years. There's some, massive growth in the breweries, growth there. East Coast in general, right? Like, Virginia, New York, Massachusetts, obviously, Rhode Island, even Connecticut's been growing in the brewery area. So just an awesome industry to see growth, because I see it as an industry disruptor, right? All these little craft breweries are starting to open up and really change the game in quality of beer. But also, I feel like there's a lot of businesses that are popping up because of that. For example, breweries aren't restaurants, but beer and food go together. So you're seeing a lot of small businesses associated with food, really start to thrive, because, like mobile food trucks and caterers that show up at these breweries and provide food for the patrons. Great opportunity to see like kind of this microcosm of the food industry start to really explode on the East Coast. So, it's good to see that's happening. I know a caterer out of, I think he's out of Rhode Island. He does barbecue.
I love barbecue.
Yeah, and the guy's awesome. I think he's originally from Ireland, and I've known him since I was doing work with breweries back in 2015, 16, and he just posted on Instagram last week that he was hiring another chef, right? Another griller, another cook. So.
And does he do it primarily at microbreweries?
He's starting. So yes and no, right? So he does kind of the circuit where he goes to all these breweries, like a couple times a week, and goes to provide food to the patrons, right? Sell food to the patrons. But he's also looking to get into catering. So it's nice to see, like, hey, when you're expanding your small business, you can do your thing with the your normal circuit of traveling to breweries. Yeah. But then also having somebody that can take on catering business for you is just like another product line that you can offer as your business. So it's good to see that these craft breweries are popping up. So
I've got one for you. This is not a technology story, but it relates to beer, which is very much in line here. Which is one of the things that's happened a lot recently in Boston, which is pretty cool, is these sort of like pop-up beer gardens. So they're small. There's one from Trillium on the Rose Kennedy Greenway. Treehouse is doing one in Copley Square in that general area on Boylston Street, I think. And one thing that came up I thought was interesting is that the city of Boston was questioning them. And the reason why is not what you think. The reason why is because when they come in, a lot of the surrounding restaurants see their volume of liquor sales, beer and otherwise, decline significantly.
Sure.
And so they're complaining like, wait a second, like these guys have all this stuff and we're getting hosed. We're missing out.
Yep.
So there was actually a question about, should they limit the number of liquor licenses, one-day liquor licenses that they offer, good idea, for these pop-up sort of beer gardens to prevent this from happening, which is interesting. What do you think?
Looking at this from like an entrepreneurial view, let the customer decide, right? Let the customers spend their money where they want to spend it. And if the city wants to limit that, will the people show up at the restaurants anyways? Because Trillium isn't there or Treehouse isn't there, I don't know.
Right.
Right. But for people that maybe live in Boston that can't drive to Canton or can't drive to Charlton to go get a type of beer, let them come in and offer it to those people and let them try it out. I mean, there's this direct competitiveness, right, that people think is bad. But I think it's actually good because it just fuels the industry.
Right.
It might be a short-term thing where people are like, well, they're taking money out of our pocket today, but it's like, yeah, but you know what? They'll be there tomorrow. They'll be there the next day if they're coming in for lunch. So you might as well, if you're in the same industry, promote it as an opportunity to tell somebody that things are going on and be a source of information, for example, versus trying to fight it and be kind of the denier of business growth. Right? It's kind of like, you want to make sure that everybody else can benefit from it as well. Right. So I think that's interesting. I didn't know that they were trying to shut it down.
It was just happening. Well, I don't know if they're shutting it down, like if they've gotten that far, but they've certainly talked about it, and then who knows what's going to happen. So, but I don't know if they will. But
I mean, I'd love to see. I know they do a lot of beer festivals, right? That's been growing as well, right? Like, so you get other breweries coming in for like an afternoon where there's like 15, 20, 40 breweries in like a tent, and you can taste all the different beers. I mean, I think that's great. But I think what's happening is now these local breweries, right, the Massachusetts breweries, are seeing opportunity to say, hey, how can we get our beers like into this different part of the state without having to get people to come to our location or distribute?
Right.
And people are feeling it, right? Their competitors are feeling it. And it's just business, guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's really it. That's all we have. The 2-0 still. U.S. women's soccer, 71st minute. And thanks for attending today. Next week, join us because we're going to have something pretty cool, which is one of our colleagues from Germany was so generous to donate some beer from microbreweries in Germany.
Tell me more.
For Actifio On-Tech.
This is news to me.
So next weekend, thanks to Dennis. Dennis, shout out to you for being so thoughtful.
That's awesome.
We will be sampling some German microbrews, which, look, I love beer, I do, but I feel like from history, you can't beat Germany, right? They've been brewing it forever. Yep. So we'll be psyched to try that out. So tune in next week to see that. And with that, I hope everyone has a great day and a great weekend.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thanks.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Subscribe.
Bye, guys.
Bye.